apperceiving as well as perceiving. There was a way of knowing above as well as a knowing below. There was a knowledge to which man ascended, carrying with it a mysterious power or capacity within himself to receive from what perhaps Aquinas would term deity, a kind of instruction which he could receive entirely apart from the physical senses, which might allow him to read a book or listen to a professor give a learned address. Man with his outer ear could listen to the words of other men, but with an inner ear he could listen to the Word of God, or what he termed God, which simply meant the voice of superior, that which was above, or more subtle, or more internal than the ordinary methods of accepting knowledge. Thus man could achieve through reason, which would be the climaxing of all faculties and their coordination, or he could receive through inspiration, which was a descent, a power of a divine life principle which could impart knowing. That which man gained, we will say for the moment, through his ordinary eyes, gave him a certain lockedness in matter. What we see, we believe. You cannot tell us this world is not here, we see it. You cannot tell us our friends do not look the way they appear to look, because we can see them. Also, we can see real estate. We can see a good investment. We can see all kinds of external things, families, friends, employment, all kinds of external situations are rationally conveyed into us through the sensory perception, and we accept them. We accept them with the peculiar intensity which has made materialism possible as a code of life. Without the tremendous validity of the physical sensory perception, man could never have been a materialist. Materialism was simply the fact that he wanted to believe that the world in which he lived was the world which he could see. And he could not rationally place an invisible world which he could not see above the visible world which he could see as a level of value. Havelock Ellis, in his Dance of Life, explains a mystical experience which happened to him. To him, this was now a more authentic way of seeing. That which was internally experienced, both visibly and audibly. This unfolding of a factual power. A power so real that the things thus seen could be as indelibly fixed upon consciousness as the things seen by the physical sensory perception. Thus, the internal experience makes man as certain of idealism as the outer sensory perception makes him certain of materialism. And having once inwardly seen, that man can no more deny what he has seen than the individual who sees outwardly, and therefore cannot deny what he has outwardly seen. The intensity of this inner seeing also carries with it a dynamic which physical seeing does not carry. Plotinus points this out, where he says that although in his lifetime he had only on one or two occasions been given this moment of illumination, that from that time on the material world in which he lived could never again possess him. This experience inwardly was so great that even a long lifetime of habitual objectification back into the sensory world could never, for even a moment, cloud this other thing, this greater thing, which he had seen and known. Ellis tells us practically in the same words, where he tells us that this experience, which occurred to him in almost an inconceivably rapid instant of time, was of such tremendous intensity and validity that it could never be forgotten, and that as a person he could never have the attitudes again which dominated him prior to this experience, and it would not be necessary for the experience to be repeated. It was indelibly set upon consciousness. Now, such an experience as this must be regarded as either metaphysical or simply superphysical. If we wish to assume that without any peculiar or convenient machinery, by a grace of deity, by the intercession of some spiritual power, the perceptions of man can be miraculously quickened, so that to a person, for no reason perhaps that he can understand, or for no rational purpose that he can define, a mystical experience can happen to him, perhaps cannot happen to another person, so that by some miraculous intercessional power, 10 people, 100 people in 1,000 years can have this valid experience. This is one view on the matter. The other view, which probably has a little better philosophic content, is that these experiences so described are possible to all human beings, just as certain attainments in this world are possible to all human beings, but that only to certain persons, under certain conditions, do the experiences actually occur. Also, we know that within a body of society, we have one group which we may call normal. We have another group which lies below normal, which is a kind of subnormal pattern, representing psychological infancy or immaturity. That we then also, above normal, have an ascending order of superior types. Superior not possibly according to some materialistic measuring rod, but superior either in psychic chemistry or in some internal spiritual grace. And that therefore some persons have developed or unfolded their natural potential, so that experiences are possible to them at a given time, but that these experiences are possible to all men at some time, because the structure for the experience does exist in all. If such is the case, then the pineal gland is a prime candidate for being involved in this superphysical situation, a situation that is not miraculous, is not mystical essentially, mysticism being only a term by which we try to explain something not generally understood or cognized. But remembering one of the really wise statements of Aristotle, where he says that when physics is properly understood, there will be no further need for metaphysics. In other words, metaphysics is merely a term to cover the undiscovered facts of physics, and that the entire procedure is a perfectly orderly one, and that this orderliness seems to suggest that the pineal gland is in some way a controller, that it is some way a door by means of which certain experiences of inward consciousness may be transferred downward into objective existence. It is possible also that this gland is the secret of your sleep-dream phenomena, and that it is this gland which makes the dream remembered or forgotten when we awaken. It is this mysterious gland by means of which that which is not normally available to the sensory perceptions may be impressed upon them from within, particularly in the form of a visual or auditory experience. Thus, that certain things are seen inside. Other things are seen on the outside. And the inner sight may likewise be involved in your psychological processes. And it is very possible that your so-called hypnotic drugs and certain researches that are now being carried on in drugs dealing with psychic stimulus, that these operate because in one way or another they affect the rhythm of the pineal body. The problem of anesthesia and many others, even hypnosis, may lurk in this area where a tremendous amount of research must still be done. Now, we don't want to entirely devote ourselves to this one structure, but the reason why it seems most valuable to us is because it is still the one around which mystery lingers, which has not been as yet explained, and for which perhaps no adequate explanation can be discovered without the aid of mysticism or philosophy as we know these terms today. That they do represent, therefore, our present approach to this situation. Now, it is not known with certainty in the extrasensory perception field that the activity of this body can be stimulated. Most of the sensitives who have been worked with at Duke's and other places were natural. Their own abilities differed in various instances. A continuous practice or some special effort to increase the extrasensory perception did not generally succeed. Thus, the situation seems to be beyond ordinary control. And the answer must certainly be, therefore, that it is not specialization by volition, but some type of psychic chemistry resulting from the ennoblement of the entire life that must contribute to the intensification of this body. Physically, the pineal gland is associated undoubtedly with the controlling factors of growth. Therefore, this growth process, in the terms of the pineal, is not merely the distribution of certain secretions to cause the rapid development of body structure. This is only a secondary, perhaps negative reflex of the gland's action. The positive aspect of it is that it is a releaser into the body of the consciousness factor. If the shock of adjustment is too great at any time, a death is likely to ensue, or at least a serious mental nervous condition develop. This again was explained by a series of circumstances noted in clinic. One of these is the case I have mentioned before of the small boy who grew up in a few months. He grew from being a child to a man in less than 6 months. At the end of a little period shortly thereafterwards, he also died. The